Balancing churn is probably the number one challenge of any SaaS or recurring business owner. It's painful. You spend so much time trying to get them to come in, become a subscriber, become a member, and then to see them walk out the back door, it's the worst feeling in the world. And so what I want to cover in this video is a couple of things that we've implemented that have helped us get to bare bottom low churn. This is battle tested over our thousands of subscribers, as well as thousands of other folks who have subscribers. If you're new here, my name is Matt. I've helped over 5,000 people generate over $100 million inside of the HighLevel ecosystem. This is all recurring private label SaaS. And so I know a thing or two when it comes to the software space, and especially if you're running a white label inside of HighLevel. And so looking at the iPad here, everything has a ceiling. This is in your business. It's commonly referred to as the growth ceiling. This is as big as you're possibly going to get. And there's three factors that go into that. This is the sales velocity, right? This is how many customers you can get on a given month there. There's churn, which we're covering in this video. And then there's the value. Literally, this is it. So this is like number of customers that you get on a monthly basis. This is that negative number of customers that you lose. And this is the price that they pay. And together, you can imagine if you get to a point where you bring on 100 new subscribers, you have a 10% churn, right? So if I like my velocity is 100 per month, I've got a 10% churn. Oops. Then, and let's say, you know, everybody pays $100 per month. At like you can calculate exactly where you're going to cap out here, and it's at 1,000. So at 1,000 subscribers, right? And because they're paying you $100, it means at $100,000 in MRR, you're going to be done, because every single month you're going to pull on 100, you're going to lose 100, and your price isn't going to change the same. So it's like that means you've grown zero. And you'll sit there treading water. And so this is why churn is so important, because it's one of the few things that they require human natural growth. Like learn from your mistakes. You can learn from your mistakes, your churn should go down. And so here's some tips that we use. And the first one is an exit survey. Because right now, before you can fix it, just learn what's going wrong. So in the process of them canceling, like how do they churn, just introduce a couple of questions that give you really helpful insights on what you maybe should make better. And so we do this by having a simple URL where it's like, you know, if people want to cancel, we just tell them, hey, you just go here, click on cancel. It's going to have a few inputs here. So the first one is we ask for their email, because we do let it be automated. So it's like them putting their billing email, tells us who it is. The second thing is basically a variation of like why. And so now we've got a couple of hypotheses as to why people cancel. And it could be, it could be price. It could be tech. It could be service. Like we made a blunder. They're unhappy with us. And so, you know, the list could go on and on. I think we've got an open answer as well. So these three, it's like any other additional detail. So right away, every time someone wants to cancel, the process to cancel is fill out this survey. A note about compliance is you're allowed to make the cancellation process equally like balanced to the sign-up process. So if you're becoming a subscriber process requires 3 steps, your cancellation process can legally have 3 steps. What you can't do is have a one-click subscribe, barely any information asked, and then also have like a 12-question part exit survey on there. So that's illegal, at least in some states. And so we generally consider a balanced process there. If you ask 3 questions to start, it's fair to ask 3 questions to end, or whatever it might be. But we really try to keep it simple. It's just email, the why, and then sort of like an open notes of whatever goes on there. And then here's so the X factor here. So having a cancellation survey is going to give you real insights on what to improve, right? If everybody starts complaining about a certain employee, and that's why they're offended by a person, you might need to get rid of that person, right? And you might realize, okay, that's what I could change here. If everybody's saying the price is too high, doesn't mean you should change your price, but you might consider a lower tier, right? Maybe there's a zone where you could capture more of these folks on the backside there. And so depending on what their why is, it'll give you at least a context of what to improve. So simple survey, you need to have a cancellation survey, ask for their email if you want to automate it, and then their why, and then we typically have an open thing here. The second piece here is, I'm going to call it reasonable friction. Especially after you start to get some insights here, we want reasonable friction. So depending on that why question, we'll send to different places. So if they, and you'll see this in the recurring space anyway. So if it was why, if it was tech, if it was service, you might have 5, 6, 7. It might be, competitor. They're going somewhere else. Competitor. Depending on what they say as their why, you make your second question, right? Like go to different places. And so you have a variety of follow-ups. And this is basically, like I said, it's a balance of questions that are aligned with how much friction how many steps are involved to start. You can balance that on the steps involved to stop. But so this is commonly like if they say price is the issue right there, maybe offer a pause. They could choose just pause my subscription. Maybe keep my stuff live, skip it. This works really well if what they're subscribing from you doesn't have any marginal costs. So if it's a software, if it's a high-level white label, and you say, hey, you want to pause, it doesn't cost you anything anyways. And basically it creates a delay in the subscription, gives them a little bit of breathing room here. And that's great. The other thing you can do is a temporary discount. I'll say HighLevel themselves during COVID, anybody who said, I need to cancel because of the uncertainty of COVID, they had a COVID special plan, which was heavily discounted to keep them in the ecosystem and keep them going. This is behind the scenes, old news here, but in 2020, this is what was happening. I didn't actually ask for a discount, but I think I saw it from the affiliate side of it. We had folks that were subscribers, and I was like, why did their commission go down? Oh, it's because HighLevel introduced this new plan where if you ask them, if you tell them I want to cancel, they're going to respond and say, here's a discount. So you can pause, you can offer a discount. And then always on that question too, you do want to make it easy where now it's now just cancel. So any of these alternative options, they're kind of it's a reasonable friction. Hey, you just told me price was an issue. Do you want to pause? Do you want a discount? Or do you just want to cancel? And so it's not terribly frustrating because you literally just choose the option of no, I'm good, I want to cancel. And the questions that you're being asked are connected to the why that you gave. So in the same way, if they said I had a service issue, you don't want to just say, do you want to pause? Or if you said I'm going to a competitor, maybe the discount could work, but pausing definitely wouldn't work. It wouldn't make any sense there. But you might say do you want to hop on a call? Do you want to talk to us? Now it still is going to say, hey, you want to hop on a call or do you want to cancel? And maybe you've got this thing where it's hey, if you want to hop on a call here, it's just hop on a call, or it's cancel. But maybe on this one, it's we will pay you for a call. If you're saying you're going to a competitor, maybe it's reasonable. You're hey, you know what? I'll actually pay you. Can I offer you a gift card, whatever it is? Just hop on. So book this call right now. I'll pay you for your time. I know you're going to a competitor because I want to get a little bit of a deeper insight into why that competitor stood out or what we did wrong to cause you to go searching and looking for another competitor here. So the key thing, if you want to reduce your churn, you need to learn from the churn that's happening here. And so the two things that are involved there is you need to have some sort of cancellation, some sort of exit survey. And I call it a survey because we want to have dynamic routing. We want to be able to say, why did you want to leave? Based on that why, we want to introduce reasonable friction to gather as much understanding as possible. So it goes without saying, but so now you want to improve, so consistently improve. If you want to reduce your churn, you need to change the variables involved. You cannot do the same thing and expect a different result, right? That's the definition of insanity. So we're going to take the feedback from our surveys and then institute improvements. The lens we're looking through is what has the inverse relationship. So we want lowest cost, right, to highest impact. That's it. That's the balance of the win for you is, and cost, this could be monetary. This could be time, right? This could just be changing systems here. Do not solve churn for the sake of solving churn. Going back to our growth ceiling there, this should be a variable that actually creates growth in the business. So for example, when I say lowest cost, money, time, change, you could say, oh, I'll reduce churn by 1/10ing my price. That might reduce churn, but if it also dramatically decreases your business, that's not a win. The win is break through those growth ceilings, not just get churn as low as possible. The other note here about churn is this concept of structural churn. So I see some folks that don't understand this reality, and also will continue to try to fix churn when churn isn't a problem. So imagine you serve college students, typically, let's say university students. I don't know if that's like a difference of understanding there. And so I've got my my 4 students here, and what happens typically in a 4-year degree is you have first year, second year, third year, fourth year students. And so every year from an annual churn, right? So from an annual churn, the best you're going to do is 25%. Why is that? Because your fourth years typically graduate, they leave, they're no longer students. And so what happens is a new incoming class comes in, but they're not a customer yet. So you have to get them again. All industries, all space, all avatars have structural churn. This is the loss of the addressable market that happens naturally. I don't care who you serve. If you serve plumbers, there's a percentage of plumbers who retire every single year. And there's a percentage of plumbers that come into the industry every year. And so sometimes the industry is growing, so the incoming is greater than the outcoming. But the reality is incoming, those are new potential customers. They're not customers. And so you're going to lose folks based on retirement. So every industry has a structural churn. And that's helpful to know because 0% is not attainable. It's just really not attainable, not addressable. I could imagine some people arguing that, if you sell water, then but even that, even if you sell water to humans, there's a percentage of people who die every single year and people who are born every single year. And so you're going to lose a customer to, them stopping being an alive human. You're going to gain potential customers from new babies being born. And so that structural churn, you got to understand this. You got to get a benchmark for this. You could Google this, search it around, ask other folks in the industry, because that should be defined as your new zero. You're shooting for structural churn. If I had a business, served college students on an annual basis, and I was doing 25% churn, that's the equivalent of a 0% churn because I can't beat the industry of addressable customers leaving my potential addressable market there. And so I want to understand what my structural churn is. The other side of this, of really the practical side of how could you beat and reduce and improve churn, is just start stronger. Usually it's first impressions, and there's 2 aspects to starting strong. So I could plan and design, like I can design retention. We've helped a number of folks do this. So a good example is there are aspects, we call them like sticky SaaS features. There are things that when implemented are incredibly sticky. They just naturally are going to reduce the churn. So we had a huge launch that we ran, and they focused on the idea of memberships. That was the product line that they were focusing on there. Apologize for my poor doodling. This actually wasn't by accident. So we talked, and I said, hey, memberships are inherently very sticky. Here's why. So imagine you start for the software, and the software is there to help you start your own online course or online membership. They designed an onboarding experience where they wanted to get everybody, the most amount of folks, to give away access. So they need to launch an MVP, like a minimum viable product for like their course. So create their course, create their minimum viable product course, and then give away access. Even better, and then it was like advanced, so you could give away at first, and then you wanted to sell at any price. Sell it at any price. Just play along with me for a second. Imagine you have a customer. They're over here. And you've got them, you've designed retention. You're in like less than 7 days. Your goal is it's completely orchestrated to get them to do one thing. It might be record a 30-minute workshop just to show them like, hey, you can teach something. So record this 30-minute workshop, sell access for, as low as $5. It's like, can you get someone to buy this from you? And now they have a customer, little person over here. Woohoo, happy. This customer gave them $5 for access to this beautiful members area. It's pretty light, but it's got at least one course in there, right? And they've made $5 and they can watch their workshop. And even better, you're designing it so your low achievers sell one or give away one. Your high achievers are going to be like, I sold it to 10 people, 20 people, whatever it is. Huge movement, shift in belief here. 30 days later, are they going to churn? It's a very low likelihood they're going to churn because they're on the hook for oops, didn't mean to do that. They're on the hook for the $5. They've been paid for access to the members area. And so this designed retention, you plan your onboarding, you plan your activation sequence to connect the things that are naturally sticky. That's just one example of what we consider a part of our sticky SaaS flow. These are the kind of things where return is going to go down just because of psychological triggers like status, where someone doesn't want to lose status because someone just paid them $5 for access. And now if they shut down the membership, they lose access. So they don't have to refund the money. So they'll keep paying $97 a month to not lose face and having to refund $5. It's just a reality and a psychological trigger. The second piece there is annual plans, and especially if full activation and retention and adoption requires a little bit longer period of time, you can pull the cash forward. And so there's a lot of research done that the simple thing you can do is offer annual plans. That is probably the easiest, is just offer annual plans, because the longer the evaluation period, the bigger the look back period, the more credit and success that they will perceive, because there's just a bigger period of evaluation. And also the less likelihood they'll make a change. You see this all the time. Short-term rentals turnover a lot faster than long-term rentals. It's just the nature. And if you have an annual lease, that means one time per year, you're deciding, do I stay or do I go? And if you've paired these two together, where there's sticky aspects of their activation, along with a long review or long billing cycle there, or a longer billing cycle, you're going to see churn go down. And so if you don't want to do annual plans, you can work back from this, and you can also institute quarterly plans and bi-monthly plans. So any longer plans will help that churn right there. So those are the things that I figure. It's like right now you can immediately institute knowledge gathering to know what you should fix. You can implement those repairs and start to fix those things. Then you can redesign your onboarding and activation flow so that it focuses on the sticky aspects of the software that are less likely for them to change a month later or whenever the billing cycle ends. And then lastly, institute some annual plans. And so I'll say with the annual plans or longer billing cycles there, it does create a little bit of an additional complexity when it comes to cash flow management. So I did an entire video just on some best practices when it comes to cash flow management, and I'll link that for you over here.